Good night, everyone. Welcome back to your favorite live sports show, none other than hashtag this just in. And welcome back to your favorite guest, none other than Dwayne Marcus of the G.O.A.T Talk with Marcus and Steezy A. Smith. Guys, how are y'all doing?
Man, I'm feeling good, feeling wonderful. A whole lot's been happening around the NFL. Ready to talk some football with you guys. Missed you guys.
I think relative to Steezy, I'm doing better than how Steezy is in the general sense of football.
Oh,
Um,
oh,
outside of that, I don't know. But in the general sense of football, I like to bet I'm doing better than Steezy's doing.
we will get there all right somewhere around mid-show. And of course, we're talking about the big Russell Wilson trade. But something shockingly actually happened that was bigger than that. None other than Tom Brady, Tampa Bay, the greatest of all time. He has returned indeed for a 23rd season, and one panelist on our show actually called it. So I'm going to have to start with this dude because Steezy A. Smith did say that he was not going to stay retired, that he was going to come back. So Steezy, I guess obviously I have to start with you. Why did Tom return in the first place? I mean, I guess I should ask why did he retire, but why is Tom Brady back?
For me, when the season ended, right, I feel like when his season ended, he was kind of going through it emotionally. His team, he knew that his team was kind of empty-handed, but the fact that they eventually just came up short against the Super Bowl champions, I feel like he kind of rushed and made an emotional decision. You know what they say when it comes to making, emotional and rash decisions, you don't want to do it when your mind is all when it's not clear. And so I think when the season ended, he kind of made a premature decision, and he ended up realizing that, I'm still probably the best quarterback in football, if not top two, top three. I'm still way too good to lead the game like that. And like I said in one of my episodes that I dropped about a month ago, Tom Brady's universally known as the comeback king. And the comeback king was not going down on a failed comeback attempt, not against the LA Rams, not against the eventual Super Bowl champions. His pride won't let him do that. And I feel like in spending all that time, with his family a week after the season ended, maybe he got tired of his family. Maybe his family got tired of him. And maybe he realized, I can still balance football and family, but I got one more season in me. He's not going to tell us that this is his last year, but all signs, likely indicate that this is his last year. A couple more things, his TB12 brand. I mean, if he goes out there and excels in his age 45 year, that's only going to do wonders for his business, for his brand. And then last but not least, he said he's going to play until he's 45. Well, he turns 45 in August, and so he would have fulfilled, the very promise that he made. I feel like ultimately some of those things led to his eventual comeback, if you will. And Russ left the NFC. So now he's looking at the NFC. He doesn't look at Aaron Rodgers as a threat. So there's really only the Rams and just about that. So those are some of the reasons why I believe he ended up coming back.
Dwayne, could it possibly be he spent time with his family and we all know the meme, F them kids? Could it really be the reason why Tom Brady returned, or is there something else behind that we just not talking about?
Tom Brady's the ultimate competitor in the ultimate competitive sport, and Tom Brady doesn't like to lose. I mean, that's really all it kind of boils down to. And I think we all saw this coming. I don't think anyone thought that Tom Brady was done 100% because Tom Brady doesn't. Well, Justin, you're wrong a lot. Tom Brady doesn't strike me as a type of guy that would go out on an L. He's been to and won more Super Bowls. I tweeted, forget at his position. He's been to and won Super Bowls than any single player in the history of the sport. That guy's not retiring on an L. He's going to retire. He's going to want to retire the way that Peyton Manning did, with a Lombardi Trophy in his hand. Now, we'll see if that happens. Then it'll become a thing of, well, if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, he's going to retire or he come back. Like, then that becomes the whole thing, and that's an unfortunate life to live. It's apparently the media doesn't like when the quarterbacks do the will they won't they thing. So we'll see if they keep that same energy with Tom Brady at the end of this season. But yeah, I mean, I think we all knew that he was coming back, except for you, apparently, Justin. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I was just kind of sad that when Tom Brady broke the internet, I was asleep because I had to work that night, and so I missed it.
I didn't miss it, but as y'all said, I was surprised and maybe I shouldn't have. And I guess the real question here for me isn't that why did he unretire? I guess it should have been asked why did he retire? And I don't know anything. I will say this, and I'm sure the two of you saw the same reports I did. There were some rumors banding around like a week and a half into his retirement, if y'all can remember correctly, that he and Byron Leftwich would come up with game plans, and after the fact, Bruce Arians would go through those game plans, put a big red mark through them, and adjust them, and call the game he wanted to call. And the reports then suggested Tom Brady was upset with that and wanted no part of that. I say this to say this kind of reminds me of when Brett Favre was traded to New York and retired from there so he could get to Minnesota. Maybe it's a situation where Tom went into retirement hoping that Tampa Bay, or he could persuade Tampa Bay to send him to wherever he really wanted to go, simply because, I gave you a Super Bowl and maybe you could give me something in return. Because we heard then during his retirement, the reports also coming out that Tampa Bay would never move, never allow him to go wherever he wanted. That if he was going to play football, he had to return to Tampa Bay. I think, I'm guessing here, I feel there is something to it. And on top of that, I think the reason then Tom returns is because we all expected Byron Leftwich to get that job in Jacksonville. And I feel when he didn't, Tom said, okay, well, I may not be in love with Bruce Arians, but, Byron Leftwich is my guy. And I can deal with Byron Leftwich for another year because he and I have a great rapport. He puts his stuff in that I like on offense. I can get Gronk, obviously, to stay here. And I honestly feel it has something to do with Byron Leftwich not getting that job in Jacksonville. I don't think these reports came from anywhere because let us, for argument's sake, say the report that he wanted to move on from Tampa Bay somewhere else was out of left field. I find it very weird that Tampa Bay would have to address Tom Brady not leaving Tampa Bay and having to go somewhere else. Like, if this is not a situation, why are you publicly addressing that point? I just find it strange, but the only people that will know Tom Brady, Jason Light, Bruce Arians, and obviously Giselle. But if you've seen all of our promos all day long, all we have been promoting is this is our quarterback special. So people, if you're coming here to talk about free agent deals, J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack's trade, all the other free agent signings, sorry folks, this is all quarterbacks. And we're going to go because it just felt like one big news after another throughout the entire week. And that next news we're going to touch on, guys, none other than Deshaun Watson, because a jury has now recused him of any criminal charges in the 22 or so sexual assault cases against him. So now, of course, NFL teams are feeling they can go after Deshaun Watson. So this time I will start with you, Dwayne. Ultimately, where do you think Deshaun Watson will end up this season?
He'll probably end up in Carolina. He should end up in New Orleans, though. A team, I think, that's more equipped. Well, yeah, there's not a team more equipped that we're very quick oftentimes to throw around the quarterback away label, and I'll get into that a little bit later when we talk about Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. But there's only a very short list of teams that are truly a quarterback away. It's the Indianapolis Colts, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New Orleans Saints, and the San Francisco 49ers. Those are the four teams in the NFL that are a quarterback away. And as much as I love Russell Wilson, the Denver Broncos were not a quarterback away, and they're not. They're closer, but they're more than a quarterback away. The New Orleans Saints have a top 10 defense. They have, despite not having Michael Thomas for much of last season or for all of last season and missing Alvin Kamara for a large chunk of time, the offense wasn't terrible last season, right? Offense looked actually more prolific and more explosive in the first half of the season when Jameis Winston was the quarterback than it really did in any given year, say the last 2 to 3 years that Drew Brees was the quarterback. Not that Jameis Winston is better than Drew Brees. Obviously, it's not the case, but that there are things that he can bring to an offense as far as mobility and arm strength that Drew Brees just couldn't. So the New Orleans Saints, I think, would be the best fit. I think when you're looking at the brass in the NFC, right, it's Packers, now Tampa Bay, now that Tom Brady's back, and then it's the Rams, and then it's everybody else. In that everybody else, you have your Dallas Cowboys, your Arizona Cardinals, your New Orleans Saints, your San Francisco 49ers. Like those are the teams that are kind of in that mix. All of those teams have quarterbacks that are kind of in the same bracket as far as where you'd rank them in the NFL. Like you'd probably put all those guys right next to each other, Kirk Cousins and Kyler Murray and whatever Trey Lance looks like at the end of the season and Dak Prescott. Deshaun Watson, I think, the last time we saw Deshaun Watson was better than Kyler Murray. Deshaun Watson was better than Kirk Cousins. Deshaun Watson is clearly better than Trey Lance. And I think you can make the argument that Deshaun Watson is probably better than Dak Prescott. Now, I think because he's played games, you would take Dak ahead of Deshaun. But the last time we saw Deshaun Watson play football, Deshaun Watson played better football than Dak Prescott did. I don't. So, not that the gap is that large. I say all that to say, I think the New Orleans Saints gives Deshaun Watson the best chance of succeeding as far as like being competitive and going to the playoffs and having a shot at winning a championship. Now, any team in the NFC does that because the NFC is very wide open. It's about as open as Steezy's top button on his shirts every time he comes on these shows. But that's just kind of the truth of the matter. But I'm sure he'll probably end up in Carolina. But if I were Deshaun Watson, I'd want to go to New Orleans.
So also to inform those who may not have had Twitter or NFL Network turned on or their notifications turned off for whatever reason, the reports are that Deshaun Watson is meeting with the Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints, among other teams, this week. So, Steezy, is it one of those two teams I just called, or do you have a surprise pick out there in the American Northwest that you want to tell us about?
Justin, I wish I had good news on my end, but actually, just shortly before this show, I actually have to alter the details of my show because a couple hours before this show started, it was reported that Deshaun Watson had actually rejected the idea of being traded to my Seattle Seahawks. And so I know later today in about an hour, I have a live show. It was supposed to be titled, Should the Seahawks Trade for Deshaun Watson? But I've since altered it to Deshaun Watson has rejected the Seahawks. What's next at quarterback for Seattle? And so that being said, I think it really just comes down to Carolina and New Orleans. I agree with everything that Dwayne said about New Orleans being the team that he should ask for. I also think that's the team he actually eventually lands on. I mean, you think about the no trade clause, he essentially gets to decide where he wants to play. New Orleans, they've been making plenty of moves to get under the cap. They're still about negative $9 million over the cap according to Spotrac, but there's still plenty of moves to be made. And what they can't make up for in draft pick compensation, they could offer with players. They could offer a Taysom Hill if Houston finds them intriguing. They could offer a Marcus Davenport. They could offer other players if need be. And so you still have two top 50 picks to offer. You have the 18th overall pick, and you have the 49th overall pick in the first and second rounds this year, first and second next year, and then the first in year 3, and then potentially another second or third, and then players on top of that. And so Deshaun Watson, I'm pretty sure he wants to play for a team where he could win. New Orleans, they're ready to win now. Like you said, Dwayne, they have an elite defense. And they have elite players in Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. And so Deshaun Watson would be the missing final piece. And financially, they're getting along just fine. So I think they check all the boxes. And Deshaun Watson, when all is said and done, should be New Orleans Saint.
The reason I put this question to y'all is, quite frankly, I don't know. Now, initially, I thought it would have been your team, Steezy, because the trade with the Denver Broncos, which we will touch just shortly, makes sense if you were going after Deshaun Watson, because you get to use the draft capital to flip for Deshaun Watson. But they would have had to know that Deshaun wasn't coming there because they would have spoken to him before. So while it is news for us that he rejected the Seahawks, they would have known from before. I thought it would make sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers because I think they're just a quarterback away from being relevant again. The issue, of course, though, is shockingly enough, Dwayne's guy, Mitchell Trubisky, was signed by the Steelers today. And on top of that, what I've also learned is that the Steelers, that's not their tradition, that's not their culture. They don't readily, give up draft capital for a big name like that, unless your name is Minka Fitzpatrick or whatever, but we'll talk about that another time. Yeah, it seems like it's coming down to those two teams. I just don't know if I'm Deshaun Watson, I want to go to either. Obviously, you want to get rid of Houston because we know the dumpster fire that is that franchise. But let's look at the two organizations quickly. Matt Rule, starting with Carolina, of course. Matt Rule has proven absolutely nothing at the NFL level in my eyes to show me that he can win as a head coach. We're already hearing reports, rumors, whatever it may be, that the Carolina Panthers are looking for trade partners for Christian McCaffrey, or at least they're open to moving him. And for me, that's their best weapon gone. Hassan Reddick, their best pass rusher, just left in free agency as well. And, it would be great had Tom not just announced that he's coming back to the NFC South. Then on the flip side, I like the Saints a bit more than the Panthers. They have a culture of winning since, their last head coach that's left. And now Dennis Allen has been, retained to kind of maintain that stability in the franchise. They have an elite defense, as both of you have touched on. Alvin Kamara is still a top 10 back in this league. My issue is we don't know what this season's going to look like because Alvin Kamara may face some sort of discipline for what happened on that Pro Bowl weekend. I am on record, I'm sure Dwayne is tired of me hearing this. Michael Thomas is never putting on a New Orleans Saints uniform ever again. I am certain of this. I believe this unless he feels that things have changed since Sean Payton has left the building. I honestly believe Michael Thomas is never putting on that uniform again. So you are going into a situation in either side where I am not sure what weapons or how great offensively you are going to look in either team. And you're going to have to face Tom Brady for at least another season. I'm with you though, guys. Franchises over everything. The culture of the Saints is by far greater than the culture of the Carolina Panthers. And I'm going to go as far as to tell you all this, guys. I think the Carolina Panthers are a rubbish organization. I'm not going to go too far into it, but seeing how they treated Cam Newton on his first go-around, seeing what they allowed from Dave Gettleman before they eventually so long moved on from it, I don't trust David Tepper. I don't trust the Carolina Panthers organization. And I've told you all before, especially when we had a Twitter war going on between the three of us, players look at the culture and tradition of ownership. And since David Tepper's taken over the short time in Carolina, I am not too sold. I don't know if y'all want a final word on that, but I'm going to lean towards New Orleans over Carolina.
Justin, real quick, if I may, I just want to add that with New Orleans, I feel like the situation between them and Michael Thomas, I feel like the temperature is, cooled off a little bit. I know that recently Michael Thomas did agree to a restructuring of his contract. And as we all know, restructuring contracts does push, money issues down the line. And from the last reports that I've read, it seems like they mended fences. And so I don't think Michael Thomas is going anywhere. But I could be wrong. I mean, it is the NFL, but with all these guys making moves to get here and to get there, I mean, I think the number of teams that will need a receiver, that's only going to continue to dwindle. And with Deshaun Watson, with Alvin Kamara, yeah, he'll probably be suspended, but like 3-4 games? And then after that, I mean, you'll still have, like you said, a top 10 back in football. So I think, yeah, like I said, the Saints are a very realistic destination. Just wanted to add that.
Dwayne, you are my brother indeed, so take no offense to what I'm about to say. We have to start with Steezy the next segment. I don't have to tell you why either. Just when I thought Aaron Rodgers was taking over last week, Tuesday, all the news of his return to Green Bay, Just 2 hours later, a certain guy from the Pacific Northwest stole headlines, and we are indeed talking about Russell Wilson changing uniforms. I only know 2 or 3 Seattle Seahawks fans, and one of them is right here on the show. So, Steezy, my brother, does the move of Russell Wilson to the AFC West now make the Denver Broncos a legit Super Bowl contender?
So allow me to preface my comments by first saying that I'm not saying that Russell Wilson is Tom Brady, but here are some very interesting similarities. So before Tom Brady joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right, they finished 7-9. They had elite weapons. They had an elite strength on defense. They had an okay offensive line. They had a little bit of flexibility in terms of cap space, and they had a hole at quarterback. Now you go over to the Denver Broncos. They go 7-10. So they also win 7 games without a reliable starting quarterback. They also have an average, okay offensive line. They also have weapons. Maybe not to the level of the Buccaneers, but Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, and Tim Patrick, those guys aren't nothing to laugh at. They have an elite ground attack in Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. They have an offensive-minded head coach in Nathaniel Hackett, who was partially responsible for the career renaissance, for the career resurgence of an Aaron Rodgers, who a couple of years ago people were giving up on. They were saying like, oh my gosh, Aaron Rodgers is on the decline. And that's one of the reasons why you guys drafted Jordan Love, and here he is on fire with an 85-9 touchdown to INT ratio in the last couple of years, back-to-back MVPs, and the NFL's richest contract in NFL history, 4 years and $200 million to show for it. And so I'm not saying Russell Wilson's on the level of Tom Brady. I'm not saying he's on the level of an Aaron Rodgers. But when he has all these pieces in place, when he has an offensively driven head coach who's willing to make him the guy on offense, he has everything around him. He has an elite defense that finished top 2 in the NFL last year in scoring defense, under 20 points a game, 18.9, and that was without a pass rush. This team is without a pass rush, and now they're being linked to Von Miller, Chandler Jones. You got Russell Wilson trying to recruit Bobby Wagner. They already have an elite pass defense. They have one of the best safeties in football, and so everything is in place. And yes, I know a lot of people are going to talk about, oh my gosh, the Chargers are making moves. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are still there. Derek Carr is underrated. But Russell Wilson has played in the toughest division of football for the last 5, 6, 7 years. That's not going to change with him playing in the AFC West. The greats do not run away from competition. They embrace it, and they run towards it. Russell Wilson is one of those greats. He's going to embrace the challenge. He has everything around him, and he's the missing piece. The Broncos were a quality team without him. They literally needed a quarterback, and they still have flexibility to address offensive line both in the draft and in free agency, plus the potential homecoming from Von Miller. Yes, Russ absolutely makes the Denver Broncos contenders in the AFC. Last point. The only 2 teams I could definitively put above the Broncos right now are the Chiefs and the Bills. Because the Chargers, for as much talent as they have on paper, even though they have Justin Herbert at quarterback, they're probably going to charger it up. And so until we see it on the field, we can't assume that the talent on paper is going to prevail. And so right now, Bills and Chiefs, and I think that the Denver Broncos could potentially join them in Tier 1, maybe the Chargers as well. But I definitely think they're absolutely Super Bowl contenders in the AFC.
Team question, Dwayne. Does the Russell Wilson trade put Broncos in Super Bowl contender status now?
No, it doesn't. And the one thing that I keep saying to Steezy, and I think because he's a Seahawks fan and because Russ has been a Seahawk all of his life up until now, saying that Russell Wilson doesn't make the Denver Broncos a Super Bowl contender, to Steezy, it feels like I'm disrespecting Russ. I'm not. Russ is great. Russ, if he retires tomorrow, is going into the Hall of Fame. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's been to 2. Like, we got it. But the Denver Broncos are not a Super Bowl contending football team. Just not. When you look at what the Seahawks had entering Week 1 last season, and you look at what the Denver Broncos have entering potentially, as it stands right now, entering Week 1 of this upcoming season, the teams are, quite frankly, exactly the same. The Broncos have a slightly better rushing attack. You can make an argument that they have a slightly better offensive line, but the defenses are about the same. Like, let's not forget, the talent is there, but let's not forget that their defensive coordinator and Vic Fangio are both gone. Like, that matters. It's the players still have to play, but you have a new DC and your defensive-minded head coach is gone. Like, that's going to that is going to factor into what this defense looks like heading into this season. That's number one. Number two, Russell Westbrook is just Jeez. Russell Wilson.
Please.
Russell Wilson has never in his career had a legitimate, reliable, in his prime, threatening tight end, right? If Noah Fant was on this football team, I would make a much stronger argument for the Broncos being Super Bowl contenders. But he's not. He's in Seattle. And as much as I think that Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are solid wide receivers, Courtland Sutton has an injury problem, and Jerry Jeudy has yet to really take that step as far as being a consistent, productive wide receiver in the NFL. Jerry Jeudy's not a scrub. He's not a scrub. But if you look at Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton compared to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, I'm taking DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Now, Steezy's big point is the collection of the wide receiver room and the guys that are the third and the fourth string. That's a fair point. But this is the thing, and people don't want to talk about it. And they a lot of times we do this contending thing. We try to make it strictly about the team, but it's about more than that. In order to contend for a Super Bowl, it's not just about how good you are. It's about who's around you. Forget the other divisions in the AFC. Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert aren't going anywhere. And despite the last 2 years where the Chargers have gotten in their own way of making the playoffs because of coaching issues, the Chargers have added by far, based on what we saw last season, I would say a top 5 corner in the league, and J.C. Jackson is now playing for the Los Angeles Chargers alongside Derwin James. Joey Bosa's there, and they just got Khalil Mack. Like, they still have Keenan Allen. They still have Austin Eckler. They just extended Mike Williams. Like, the Chargers aren't going anywhere. The Kansas City Chiefs are the Kansas City Chiefs. They're rumored to potentially land a Jarvis Landry or Juju Smith-Schuster or maybe even an Allen Robinson. Like, they can still get better offensively. You look at the Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. Are they as prolific or as flashy as the other 3 teams? No. But Derek Carr's not a scrub. This defense was this defense was I would say the best defense the last 4 to 5 weeks of the season heading into the playoffs. And they have a top 3 tight end in the NFL in Darren Waller. So that's a talented football team. That's the AFC West. Don't even get me started on the Buffalo Bills, who, if it weren't for a terrible 13-second defensive situation, probably would have went to the Super Bowl last year. We also can't forget about the team that did represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, the Cincinnati Bengals, who just went and added depth on their offensive line and got that offensive line better. Like, Broncos going to be a playoff team this season, 100%. But there are other teams in the AFC right now that are better equipped to contend, make it to, and potentially win a Super Bowl than the Denver Broncos. And 2 of those teams are in their own division. That we haven't even talked about the Lamar Jackson-led Baltimore Ravens, who really only struggled last season because of the fact that Lamar Jackson was in and out of the lineup due to injury. We haven't talked about the always looming threat of the Bill Belichick coach New England Patriots. Are they a flashy football team? No. But Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time, and they're only going to get better. They're also potentially going to get one of these big-name free agent wide receivers as well, which is going to help that team get better. Like, there are a lot of variables that go into being a contending football team. I love Russ. I think Russ is great. I think the AFC West is going to be must-watch football. I was just talking to my friends before we came on the show. ESPN, I don't know if this report is true or not, but Phil Yates reported maybe an hour or so ago that ESPN, the first 8 weeks of the season, they've locked up Monday Night Football with AFC West matchups. Like, we're getting Monday Night Football from the AFC West for the first 8 weeks of the season. Clearly, ESPN doesn't care about any other division in football because they know, just like we know, this is going to be must-watch football. But when we're talking about a contending football team, we're not just talking about what they have themselves. We're talking about what other teams have around them. And I'll close with this, right? When we look at the Dallas Cowboys, when we look at the Minnesota Vikings, we look at even, again, the Seattle Seahawks. Are those teams talented? Yes, those teams are very talented. But we don't look at those teams as Super Bowl contending teams because there are 3 to 4, maybe even 5 teams that are better equipped in the NFC on a year in and year out basis that are more equipped to contend for a Super Bowl. I think the Broncos will be great. I think, like I said, this will be much watched football. They'll definitely make the playoffs. And I'm not saying that I'm immune to changing my tune, right? Down the line, if they add more pieces, if they start looking a lot better and some of these other teams start looking really, really bad, of course they could potentially make their way into the conversation of being a Super Bowl contending team. But as it stands today, 8/34, March 14th, I do not think that the Denver Broncos are a Super Bowl contending football team. That doesn't mean I don't think they can get there. But as it stands right now, they're just not a Super Bowl contending team. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. not a bad thing.
So hold my beer because I'm going to double down on what Steezy said. As of 8:35 Eastern Time, not only are the Denver Broncos a Super Bowl contending team, hold my beer here, they are the best team in the AFC West. And I see your looks, and that's not going to change my thing because I'm going to tell you now, the Kansas City Chiefs, they have glaring holes. They still have problems on their offensive line. They cannot stop the run, and their back end is still not good. We're talking about the LA Chargers as if the LA Chargers have won anything. Far less, the LA Chargers have not been in the playoffs for God knows what, for the last 3-4 seasons. So much so.
The Broncos haven't been in the playoffs since they won the Super Bowl.
Hold on. But we're talking about the Chargers as if constructed. The Chargers have won something. And the LA Chargers, last I remember, have a very glaring weakness in stopping the run. So after adding J.C. Jackson and after adding Khalil Mack, guess what? Those aren't run stoppers. That is still not addressing your primary weakness. The reason I believe the Denver Broncos are the best team in the AFC West. Please, gentlemen, name me a glaring weakness on this roster.
The offensive line.
No.
And a rookie coaching staff.
A rookie coaching staff that TV just showed you or just mentioned led to the career resurgence of Aaron Rodgers to the tune of back-to-back MVPs. And it's not just in Green Bay. From college to wherever he goes, Nathaniel Hackett has been known not only as a player's coach, but a guy who turns around every single offense he touches. From Syracuse all the way to Green Bay, the man has these magic fingers. But I'm going to go even deeper because I'm not going to let sentiment ride me here. I'm going to go with numbers. The Denver Broncos, defensively now, the Denver Broncos last season ranked top 10 in completion percentage, total yards, and passing yards. And they were the third ranked team in terms of scoring defense. The third. The other two teams you would like to know are the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots, who feasted on a weak AFC East. The Denver Broncos gave up less than 19 points a game in a division with Patrick Mahomes, Derek Carr, and Justin Herbert. Think about that for a second. And not only those 6 games did they have to play that they gave up 19 points or less than 19 points a game, they also played the Cowboys and the Bengals, who are now coming from the Super Bowl. The Bengals that you so love. They played all of those. Those are 8 games with top flight offenses, and they gave up less than 19 points a game. Unfortunately for Steezy Seattle Seahawks, they were not able to put any proper defensive player from that team, so that defense remains intact and returns. They were not able to take Patrick Surtain, who's still there. They didn't get Bradley Chubb. They did not get Justin Simmons. That defense, unfortunately, minus the defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio, obviously, but that defense remains intact. Now, imagine that defense paired with an offense that actually can sustain drives, because we act like offense and defense together they don't matter. But defenses are helped when your offense can sustain drives. The quarterbacks in Denver last season were Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. Now tell me which offenses were allowed to sustain drives. It means their defense had to go back on the field and were still elite. This is a top 3 defensive unit that is returning. And now you're putting Russell Wilson with Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, and a running back I expect to break out next season in Javonte Williams, and a head coach who has just revived Aaron Rodgers' career to the tune of back-to-back MVP seasons. Guys, there is no glaring weakness on this Denver Broncos team. You can't see the same thing of the Chiefs, who are just terrible defensively. You can't say the same thing about the Chargers, who all they needed to get in the playoffs was one play, guys. One play on a long third down. Did the Raiders put the ball in Derek Carr's hands? No. Did the Raiders put the ball in Darren Waller's hands? Did it put it in Hunter Renfro's hands? No. The Chargers are so bad defensively that the Raiders on a 3rd and long merely handed off the football to get the yardage they needed to kick a game-winning field goal because the Raiders knew the Chargers are that bad defensively. They were not going to stop a single run up the middle, although their head coach, who is worse, by the way, and I've never seen Nathaniel Hackett be a head coach, Brandon Staley is not nearly as good as Nathaniel Hackett. A head coach called a timeout to put his base run defense on the field, and it still could not stop the Raiders from picking up a first down on a 3rd and long. Gentlemen, we are looking at the quarterback, and this is not just any old quarterback. This is a top 10 quarterback who is third all time in touchdown to interception ratio. What's the 5-year putting up? Oh, sorry.
He's saying
he's a top 5 quarterback.
Well, top 10.
I don't know, but he's third all time in touchdown to interception ratio. And look at what Nathaniel Hackett does with a quarterback who does not turn over the football. And we believe that this Denver Broncos team, which only gave up 18 point whatever points per game, has Cortland Sutton with Jerry Jeudy. And oh, by the way, to your point about Noah Fant, for all, we want to rave and rant about, has 10.
Noah Fant is better than any Titan Russell Wilson has ever played with in his career. That's a fact.
Noah Fant has
That's a fact because all of the
10 touchdowns in 3 seasons.
The best
10 touchdowns in 3 seasons, has never cracked 70 receptions in a single season. I think that's a bit overrated.
Okay, number one, Noah Fant. That's not Noah Fant's fault. Noah Fant has been the Denver Broncos haven't had scrubs at wide receiver. Number one. Number two, and most importantly, the best tight end that Russell Wilson has played with, and this is my opinion. Steezy knows it better than me because he watches every single game and knows the team more than I do inside and out. But as far as I can tell, the best tight end that Russell Wilson has played with was the post-New Orleans Saints Jimmy Graham. Like
Greg Olsen had a piece of Seattle too, right?
Greg Olsen had a piece of Seattle. Fine, let's say Greg Olsen. But here's why my face was frowned out for much of your very, 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 very ungodly long soliloquy. I loved it. I loved every second of it. Why? And I love Nathaniel Hackett. I think Nathaniel Hackett's great. I expect this team to make the playoffs. Let me say it again. I expect this team to make the playoffs. Just because I don't think they are Super Bowl contenders doesn't mean I think they're going to be a bad team. So that's number one. Number two, why maybe it's just me, and I don't know if it's because I'm a Packers fan or if I'm just looking at the numbers. And I know it was a down year, but in any other situation in the history of football, when you look at a quarterback that has a down year, that's not because of injury or because of something crazy or an act of God, it's almost always in their first year under a new head coach in a new system. We keep doing this thing where we talk about Aaron Rodgers' first year under Matt LaFleur as if he played god-awful. The man threw for 4,000 yards, had 25 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He followed that up with 2 seasons in a row where he threw for 10 more touchdowns at least in each season. Okay, did he look great?
But you forget,
no, but he didn't play bad that season.
But they're missing the playoffs too.
You forget the 2 seasons, the 2 last seasons.
Okay, two seasons. I was going to get there. The 2 seasons before
that they looked great. The last 2 seasons of Mike McCarthy and the first of the new head coach in Matt LaFleur.
Number one, the second to last season under Mike McCarthy, he got hurt. Mm-hmm. The season after that, he got hurt. The season after that, under Matt LaFleur's first season, he threw for 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Like, did Aaron Rodgers play?
I'm not telling you Aaron Rodgers is bad.
Was he on this?
But these were down years for him.
I'm not. I know that. Okay, I understand that. He got hurt twice and was in his first year under a new head coach. We can't do this thing where we move the goalpost when it makes sense. Like we can't do this thing where for some quarterbacks being under a new head coach and having a down year is okay, but then for other quarterbacks, it's not. Like, and I'm not trying to take away from Nathaniel Hackett because I think that Nathaniel Hackett's great, and Nathaniel Hackett's job got a lot easier when Russell Wilson decided to waive his no trade clause to go to Denver. I understand that and I acknowledge that 100%. But let's not pretend like Aaron Rodgers was just god awful, and then like Nathaniel Hackett resurrected him from the. No, I know that, but what I'm saying is that seems to be like the point is that Nathaniel Hackett's going to be different because he resurrected Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers' career wasn't dead. Number one, number two, and more importantly, as great and as wonderful as I think that Nathaniel Hackett is. And don't get me wrong, I think Nathaniel Hackett's great. I think he's wonderful. I'm sad to see him go, quite honestly. I love Nathaniel Hackett. We have to be realistic here. There are not many instances over the last 10 years or so, 5 years, when a rookie head coach is goes on this scorch the earth tour and takes a team to the Super Bowl. It just doesn't happen. Like, that is a factor that we have to consider.
And as talented as this defense is, we're not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. And on top of that, you're exaggerating our argument.
Understand that.
You're saying that we're saying Aaron Rodgers is trash. We're not saying that. But it's also
I'm not saying that. What I am saying is Aaron Rodgers, the word career resurrection would apply to a guy like Mitchell Trubisky if he plays out of his mind in Pittsburgh. The term career resurrection would apply to a guy like Carson Wentz if now that he's back in the NFC with Washington, he just plays out of his mind.
But
Aaron Rodgers' career wasn't dead. There was nothing to resurrect.
We're not saying it's dead, but then are you saying it's a coincidence that the only 2 years Aaron Rodgers spends with Nathaniel Hackett, the only 2 years are his are 2 MVP years? So we're saying that that's just coincidence then?
No, I'm not. Wait, hold on. I'm not saying that it is a coincidence. What I'm saying is that we have been gravely over-exaggerating, to use your word. We have been gravely over-exaggerating just how much of a down year Aaron Rodgers' 2019 was. He threw for 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He was still top 10 or top 5 in passer rating.
Which is fine. But
this team still won 13 games, and they still went to the NFC Championship. Like, Aaron Rodgers didn't play terribly that year, number one. And number two, so that I can finish my point, I don't think that Nathaniel Hackett is a bad head coach. I don't think that he won't have success. But all I am saying is he's still a rookie head coach. This is still a talented defense, sure, with a new defensive coordinator, and they also have a new offensive coordinator. Like, they overhauled the entire coaching staff. It is not absurd or crazy to expect that the defense is going to take a step back and that the offense isn't going to be as explosive as you guys and many other people expect it to be. I don't think the Denver Broncos are going to be bad. I think the Denver Broncos are going to be second or third in the division, and they'll make the playoffs. They have to make a playoff. This is the playoff team. But as it stands right here today, I don't see this team contending for a Super Bowl just yet. We have to see what it looks like. Like, we do this all the time. We looked at the Cleveland Browns when they got Odell Beckham Jr. and they had Jarvis Landry and they had all that talent on offense. We said that would be a Super Bowl contending team. What happened?
Because the quarterback is bad.
We've seen
the quarterback is bad.
Okay, but that's not the point.
By your own metrics,
okay, but that's not the point.
Just said,
wait, hold on. The point. Let me just finish the point. I'm
25-6. Was his last before Nathaniel Hackett came? 25 touchdowns to 6. You know what he did the very next season? He threw for 40.
I know what he did. I watched it. I'm a fan. I watched every single game. I understand that. But what I am saying is we haven't seen this team step foot on a football field yet. That's all I'm saying. Was the Cleveland Browns point a bit out of left field? Yeah, because Baker Mayfield sucks. But all I'm saying is we have seen countless times over the past, really, and all throughout NFL history, we've seen a lot of teams that said that's a football team that is primed to contend for a Super Bowl. And they step foot on a football field, and things happen, life happens any given Sunday, and they don't look like it yet. I am not going to say right now that the Denver Broncos are a Super Bowl contending football team because there's been too much change. We have to see what this change looks like over time. We have to see what this team looks like as they get through adversity. Does this offensive line suck? No, but it's also not one of the better offensive lines in the NFL either. This is still a pretty average offensive line. Like, we still need to see what the offensive line looks like, what Russ looks like behind the offensive line. We still need to see what Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and all these guys that you're naming look like on the football field under a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, and a new defensive coordinator. All of those things matter. On paper, yes, this is one of the most talented rosters in the National Football League today. 100%. I'm not denying that. But we haven't seen them play football. We just saw the Arizona Cardinals go 7-0, looked prime for Super Bowl contention, and then they fell flat on their face. We see every single year one of the most talented teams in football, the Dallas Cowboys.
The quarterback
hold on,
we see for breaking down.
Hold on.
All right, Dave, you can go
hold
on. But
we see. I understand, but the point that I'm making is we do this all the time, where we see teams before the year and we say this is going to be a Super Bowl contending team, and then something happens and then they're not. But I don't think I'm not saying they can't get there. I'm just saying, as it stands right now, because I haven't seen them play football yet, and because there's been so much change, I'm not ready to say right now that this is a team that's going to win it, that is going to contend for a Super Bowl. I think they can get there. I'm sure they have what it takes to get there come week 8, week 9, week 10, once they've been through it all and we've seen them play some tough games. But as it stands today, right now, March 14th, I don't think this team is a Super Bowl contending team because we have to see what they look like. This team can win 7 games this season.
No,
that's possible. It's possible for this team to win 7 games this season.
But
it is.
They won 7 without a franchise quarterback.
Right, but it's equally as possible for them to win. I'm not saying they are going to win 7 games. I'm saying it's possible that they can win 7 games again this season. That's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
I don't want to cut you, Dwayne, but Steezy has a late show just shortly, so I want to get through these topics because there's another question here directed.
Wait, Justin, I'm so sorry. No, I'll stay on for an extra 5 minutes just because I feel like some of the stuff that I've been hearing, I'm hearing some nonsense right now, with all due respect, my brother Dwayne. I hate to have to destroy a brother, but just call it tough love. First of all, the reason why I called Aaron Rodgers' career renaissance or career resurgence a couple of years ago is because, yes, he threw for over 4,000 yards and passed for 25 touchdowns, only had 6 picks. But the year before Matt LaFleur came on, Aaron Rodgers played the full 16-game season, and his team went 6-9-1.
He was dealing with injuries that season. He
still played the entire year. He played the entire year.
Injured though. He wasn't 100%. Like that has to factor into it. Does it not?
No, how do you go from 25 touchdowns to 48? That's almost double. His efficiency, everything went up. Yes, he was injured, but even in the years prior, what was he doing to still signify that he's an elite quarterback? He hasn't done anything in the playoffs. We all know that. And so why are we looking at him now and saying that
what has he done in the playoffs since? He still hasn't done anything in the playoffs. He still has
what he's done in the regular season. Back-to-back MVPs, 85-9 touchdown to INT ratio. You're not giving any credit to Nathaniel Hackett? Is he not responsible for any of that?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that I'm giving no credit to Nathaniel Hackett. That's not what I'm saying. That's why I didn't want to make this. I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers was great in spite of Nathaniel Hackett these last 2 seasons. And I'm not saying that Nathaniel Hackett doesn't have something to do with it, because obviously he does. The point that I was trying to make was that we've done this thing where we look at the numbers and forget exactly what happened in those 3 seasons. He missed most of the second to last season under Mike McCarthy because of injury. The season after that, did he play all 16 games? Yes. But he was dealing with he was still dealing with residual effects of the season before coming off of injury. And then he was also dealing with injuries in that game as well. He was taken out of games a couple of times in that last season with Mike McCarthy because of injury. In his first season with a new head coach in a new system, he had a down year, but he still played great. Like, he still played great football. I think Nathaniel Hackett is amazing, and he is one of the premier offensive minds in the NFL. I 100% agree with that. The only point that I was trying to make was, despite all of that, the team still has to adjust to the new. I don't even know the new. The word I'm looking for is lost on me, but the life under Nathaniel, life after Vic Fangio, life after their old OC, life after the old DC, they still have to adjust to that. Like, that still takes time. There's going to be adjustments that we're going to see throughout the course of the season. So right now, because we don't know what this team is going to look like on the football field, it's hard for me to gauge right now if they're a Super Bowl contender or not, which is why it's just easier for me to say yes than it is for me to say no. Will they get there? They have everything it takes to get there. But right now, I don't think they're there yet. That's all I was saying.
I have to transition because we still have so many more topics. And Steve, you have a show coming up. And there's one directed for you as well, because the Seattle Seahawks did indeed have to trade Russell Wilson to said Denver Broncos. Do you think, Stevie, that they got enough in that trade?
No, not at all. I like Noah Fant, and I think this kind of, goes off what I wanted to say earlier. Noah Fant, even if he remained in Denver, it's not like he would have moved the needle for Russell Wilson in that offense. Russell Wilson, the problem with Russell Wilson is that he's elite outside of the numbers. But the problem with Russell Wilson in Seattle has been his inability to target the short area, the intermediate pass, part of the football field. He doesn't ever rarely target his tight ends. And so even if he had a Noah Fant in Denver, who's to say he would have used a Noah Fant? That's the reason why Jimmy Graham didn't work out in Seattle, because Russell Wilson does not use his tight ends. He doesn't play inside the numbers. He plays outside the numbers. And so with Noah Fant coming in, I'm intrigued by his talent, but Russell Wilson doesn't use his tight ends. And so with him coming to Seattle, I actually think that's a good thing for us. But as far as the trade package, look, I expect Denver to be a Super Bowl contender. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying they're going to win 12, 13 games. As far as their offensive line, it's not elite, but the Bengals just showed the world that you don't have to have an elite, even an average offensive line to make the playoffs. To even appear in the Super Bowl, they had one of the worst offensive lines in football. And right now, Denver's offensive line is a lot better than that. And so I don't want to hear the offensive line argument when the team just showed that you don't need even an average offensive line to make the playoffs. But going back to the pieces, if Denver is the Super Bowl contender that Justin and I believe that they are, they're probably going to send that first rounder next year. That's probably going to be in the upper 20s, maybe even the early 30s. And so the way I look at it, that trade is essentially 1 first rounder, 3 second rounders, 3 players, and then a 5th. And then on Seattle's end, they're also giving up a 4th round pick. And so I thought the minimum asking price for a franchise quarterback was a minimum of 3 first-round picks. Here, Seattle gets 1 first rounders, and then 3 seconds. And so, yes, it's absolutely not enough. I had the opportunity to speak to a Broncos insider the other day, and I asked him, why wasn't Bradley Chubb or a Patrick Surtain on the table? Were they untouchable? He kind of alluded to Pastor Tam being untouchable, but he was kind of perplexed as to why Bradley Chubb wasn't included in the deal. He is still on a rookie scale deal. He feels a need for the Seattle Seahawks, seeing as how he's a pass rusher. He has top 5 pedigree. His problem is that he's been unable to stay on the football field, but last year he had 0 sacks. And so I don't know why. Maybe he was deemed as untouchable. I don't know why Seattle didn't want to take him on. But it's always like that with Seattle. Seattle never chooses to address premium positions when they look to trade. Like, we look at some of the trades in the past: Percy Harvin, Jimmy Graham, Jadeveon Clowney, because he wasn't a pure pass rusher, Jamal Adams. None of these guys play premium positions. Now, Jalen Ramsey, who plays a premium position, Seattle could have had their hands on a Jalen Ramsey. Well, they weren't going to have their hands on a Matthew Stafford because they had a Russell Wilson. But when you make big trades in the NFL, you want to swing trades for premium position players. Seattle just has not done that. And so I think with Seattle, they didn't even target any premium players in their trade package. I know they're a little higher on Drew Lock than other people would like to be high on Drew Lock. But overall, I thought the package was underwhelming just because the picks, I don't think they were all the way there. The players, it was underwhelming. They could have done better, even with the Bradley Chubb, even if Pastor 10 was off the table. And so Seattle definitely lost the trade, but I feel like it was something that they had to do. It was inevitable and better now than next year. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
Bad segue for those who are watching, but what Seattle did recoup: 2 first rounders, 2 seconds, a 5th rounder, Drew Lock, Noah Fant, and a very young pass rusher. Dwayne, did Seattle get enough, or do you think that this is just plain?
No. The Detroit Lions got 3 first-round picks from Matt Stafford. Russell Wilson's better than Matt Stafford. That's simple math. I mean, that's all I got. That's simple math. Russell Wilson's better than Matt Stafford. The Seattle Seahawks should have gotten at least 3 first-round picks for him.
Yeah,
and they don't get 3 first-round picks. And if that's the package you get Bradley Chubb. And if you don't get Bradley Chubb, you hang up the phone. That's very simple.
I'm going to keep this segment short. The reality is, last year the Bears came a-calling. They offered 3 first rounders and 2 seconds. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Steezy, but that's where they are for stud. So I don't know how you come the year afterwards to take even less. People may say, oh, but they threw in Drew Lock and Noah Fant. Drew Lock has a career completion percentage below 60. Noah Fant, as I said before, has 10 touchdowns in 3 seasons. Seriously. And I told Steezy off camera before, I don't know how you allow a franchise not to start with 3 first. I mean, for me, the going rate has to start at 3 first rounders. Like it should be no less for somebody like if you're talking Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers right now probably are untouchable. So too Justin Herbert and kid over there in Buffalo. But when you're talking about these players, you pick up the phone and they answer it. The first thing they should be hearing is no less than 3 first rounders in 2 seconds. Like that's a starting price as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know how you take 2 first, and as you said, one of those first is going to be very, very low first rounder. Then you're talking about 2 seconds, or I can live with that. A fifth. Drew Lock basically is worth a 7th rounder at this point in time. Like seriously, no offense, I'm not very high in. Like, so I guess we all agree with this.
And real quick, Justin, Seattle also had to give up a 4th-round pick. And so why is the team giving up a franchise quarterback? I know it seems insignificant, but a lot of draft gems have been found in the later rounds. Why is Seattle, the team, giving up a franchise quarterback to the team that's most desperate for a franchise quarterback? Why is that team giving up a 4th-round pick? That was very puzzling.
Absolute madness. When I saw the trade, it's like, right, well, clearly they started at 3 first rounders and probably went to 4. And I only saw 2. I'm like, oh, John Schneider and Pete Carroll, you're going to have some explaining to do. Yes. Who doesn't have any explaining to do, thank God, is none other than Brian Gutekunst, Russ Ball, and Mark Murphy. Because guess what? On that same Tuesday, they were able to retain the services for Aaron Rodgers. We don't know the terms of the deal. It has been leaked. It was 4 years, $200 million, but Aaron Rodgers quickly refuted that. Dwayne, after what seems like 2 years or a year and a half, a year and a piece, whatever, of Aaron Rodgers going back and forth, all the drama, and it seemed like he was out the door, probably to Denver Broncos. Why did A-Rod return to Green Bay?
Because Aaron Rodgers realized that his best shot at winning a Super Bowl is if he stayed his ass in Green Bay. I don't think there's any other Tom Brady left. The only legitimate threats in the NFC would have been Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, and after the Rams, stay your ass in Green Bay. That was very simple. Now, I've been saying this all week. I'm going to say it again. I think this is the first time Justin is going to hear me say it unless he's watched or listened to some of the other shows I've been on over the last week or so, which he probably has. So he probably knows what to say. Steezy, I don't think so. If Aaron Rodgers does not win, if Aaron Rodgers does not go to a Super Bowl in the next 4 years, this deal will mean nothing. To me, this deal will mean absolutely nothing to me. Brady's back now. Can either of you fine gentlemen please name me a team that is not in Tampa Bay or Los Angeles in the NFC that is just as, if not more equipped to make it to and win a Super Bowl than the Green Bay Packers?
None.
No, you cannot. You can't. The next, and he wants to, he refuted. The deal is 4 years, $200 million, $153 million guaranteed. Like, let's be serious here, Aaron. Let's be serious. You can't make it to a Super Bowl in the next 4 years, and your only competition is Matt Stafford, a guy you have quite literally owned your entire career, and Tom Brady, a guy who probably won't be here for the next 4 years. That's an issue. Green Bay would look stupid for paying this man all this money. We will have looked stupid for being glad that he's back. Aaron Rodgers is the only winner here because he gets his money, and that's all he seems to care about is getting his money. I love Aaron Rodgers. I think he's great. Aaron Rodgers is the reason why I, unlike some of my other friends, have not been in quarterback hell, and Steezy's now approached that, and I feel for you, brother. But like I love the fact that all my life I've been able to just at least we got a top 10 quarterback. It's nice. It's nice to kind of be in that top 5 quarterback range. But like in all seriousness, if the Green Bay Packers are not in a Super Bowl in the next 4 years, that is an issue. And to me, Aaron Rodgers will always be the James Harden of the NFL.
Ooh, some harsh words. Steezy, why did my guy decide to stay put in Lambeau?
Just to piggyback off what Dwayne said real quick, I feel like he might even be a worse version of James Harden in the NBA. I mean, yeah, I mean, ever since he won that Super Bowl, his record is under 500 in the playoffs. James Harden, I don't know if it's under 500, but at least he's been, somewhat more competent. I think Aaron Rodgers is just, it's been bad.
James Harden has had some massive disappearing acts in playoff games and in regular season playoff
tell you to
scenarios.
Watch your words. This man is still a Super Bowl champ and a Super Bowl MVP. And you are.
He is.
Right.
But I'm saying in the 12 years since, he's been the James Harden of the NFL.
He's
right. Yeah. I mean, maybe
been to
I'm
three
going a little too
NFC
far.
championship games since then as well. Huh?
How many has he won?
None, but just let you know.
0.
I'm not telling you he's the greatest playoff quarterback. I'm not telling you he's Joe.
No, I love
just
Aaron. But what I'm saying is
James
Aaron
Harden is a bit of a stretch.
No, but and maybe it is. But what I mean by that is Aaron Rodgers plays phenomenally in the first 16, now 17 games of the season. Plays great, looks phenomenal. Gets to the postseason, and we don't always get that Aaron Rodgers magic. We don't always get that vintage, those vintage Aaron Rodgers. I think maybe I'm being a little bit harsh, but I'll let Steezy finish. Yeah. I don't think I've ever said this to Justin, but I think the last time we got some vintage, like some really regular season Aaron Rodgers magic in the postseason was that game against Dallas in the playoffs when Dallas went 13-3 and we went to Dallas and beat them. Like that was the last great Aaron Rodgers performance. And I think the thing I hate about that game and the game since is it's not that he's incapable of doing it. We saw him do it, and it was beautiful. That game was a masterclass of masterclasses. That's what I mean. He doesn't always, the way that he shows up weeks 1 through 16, now 17, he doesn't show up like that all the time in the postseason. That's why I say he's the James Harden of the NFL.
Go ahead, Stevie, finish your point.
But you're right. It might be a little bit of a stretch. It might be a little bit.
You could say I'm just trying to make headlines, but nah, I'm in all seriousness. I'm playing. I'm just trolling. But honestly, I'm gonna keep it short and simple. I feel like Green Bay they kind of got desperate. They kind of realized that as Dwayne is, him and I've kind of gone back and forth on Twitter. They're not very excited about the prospects of starting a Jordan Love. They still have a win now football team. And so, Green Bay kind of got desperate. They kind of caved in a little bit. They were willing to make him the highest paid player in NFL history. And they've been catering to Aaron Rodgers, somewhat slightly in the past year or so. I think that trade for Randall Cobb, I think that definitely kind of, helped to mend fences a little bit in their relationship. And, they've been able to kind of work behind the scenes at just better in that relationship with theirs. And so I think ultimately those are some of the things that led to Aaron Rodgers coming back. And now they're working towards bringing Devontae Adams in. Who knows? Maybe you guys get a Jarvis Landry as well. And so I think the biggest part about it is that Aaron Rodgers was able to kind of mend his relationship with Brian Gutekunst.
I think you can change Jarvis Landry for Allen Robinson because I've seen some back and forth love affair of the two on thing. But who knows? I'll say this. Point A, I agree. It started with it's all about relationships first thing. So the relationships that he had to begin with, his BFF is David Bakhtiari, who he just, officiated his wedding. Yeah. He got back Randall Cobb. He's been there forever with Mason Crosby. He has a very good relationship with Devontae Adams and a seemingly great one with Preston Smith. I didn't know about that.
Devontae's not happy though. He's not happy right now.
But
he's not. He said he didn't appreciate Aaron Rodgers taking all that money and makes his contract negotiations.
So there are those relationships, and then to Steezy's point, they're the relationships that he mended, and the front office did that by first bringing in Randall Cobb. Then you see that they're bringing him into the fold. They stood by him, or at least they didn't publicly criticize him through the entire COVID situation. And then, they brought his old favorite quarterback coach out of retirement in Tom Clements. They went after the Raiders interim coach to be their special teams coach, which is a huge, huge, huge deal. So clearly there have been mended the defenses, and it kind of saw or got a clue that things were really mended midway through the season when there was a picture or video that surfaced of Aaron Rodgers and Brian Gutekunst hugging on Ray Nitschke Field. And yeah, if you know Aaron Rodgers, that's not going to happen unless things are good. I believe it is relationships first. Here's the thing, though, I want to throw out, and I don't know how much stock I put into this. I don't know how much this is actually real. But when Adam Schefter reported of Steezy's guy moving on from Seattle getting traded, there is a part I took note of when he made the report, and it got me to thinking. And the report, or the part of the report that got my ears kind of itching, is that through all that situation, Denver, before they actually got Russ, were in talks. Sorry, Seattle were in talks with Denver for 3 weeks, apparently. Denver actually never called Green Bay during that entire time. The reason I bring this up, what if, because we all believe that Denver decided to reverse course when they thought that Aaron Rodgers was not leaving and went after Russell Wilson. But if the reports are true that Denver was on the phone with Seattle for 3 weeks and never called Green Bay, guys, what if it's the other way around? What if, guys, and again, I don't know how much stock to put into this, and I've heard some rumors suggesting this. What if it was that Denver was going after Russell Wilson all along, and Aaron was the one who wanted to go to Denver, and then when he realized he could no longer get to Denver, he decided to stay in Green Bay? Because we all feel that it was Aaron Steen that prompted Denver to go after Russell Wilson. But what if it was Denver going after Russell Wilson that prompted Aaron to stay? Again,
I just want to say for the record, and if you look back at the tapes, it'll show I spent the last year and a half telling Justin Aaron Rodgers was going to stay. So that's number one. Number two, I think on a more serious note, John Elway is no longer the guy that makes these decisions. I think after the Brian Flores thing, or maybe a little bit before that, or I would assume after that for sure, though, he got removed from his post. Like he still has his job there, but he doesn't make these decisions. I think the Aaron Rodgers to Denver news last season was very real because John Elway likes big quarterbacks because he was a big quarterback. The guys that make the decisions now prefer smaller guys. And I think that's why Russ is in Denver. Because clearly the big quarterback hasn't been working, whether it's because they're big or because they just haven't been drafting the right guys. I think it's because they haven't been drafting the right guys. Because you can find yourself a nice big quarterback and it'd be good. It sounded weird. But yeah. I think it's
again,
but I just wanted to say for the record,
I'm not
the young whippersnapper here called this shot a year and a half ago, and this guy was he's gone.
I believe he was going to Denver, but again, I'm not putting too much stock into the report. I'm just saying, what if it's the other way around, that Denver spurned Aaron Rodgers and not Aaron Rodgers spurning Denver? So with that in mind, there is another side of this that a lot of people aren't touching, and Dwayne, as a Packers fan, obviously I'm going to start with you. With Aaron Rodgers there, what do you do with the first-round draft pick, otherwise known as Jordan Love?
Hopefully this doesn't spark another heated debate with me and Steezy. I love Steezy. Steezy's great. Me and Steezy kind of had this back and forth for a long time, or for a while the other day. This was never going to be the situation for Jordan Love to thrive. Whether Aaron Rodgers stayed or whether he left, this was never going to be the situation because despite drafting Jordan Love, the Packers knew their best chance at going back to and winning another Super Bowl was if number 12 was under center. You're not going back to, or you're not making the playoffs most likely with Jordan Love as your quarterback for at least 2 to 3 years, unless he just completely wows you and he's truly this generational talent. And he's not. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. This just wasn't the situation for Jordan Love to thrive. So, with that being said, there's not much you can do with Jordan Love, quite frankly, because on this level, based on what we've seen, and it hasn't been a lot, but based on what we've seen on this level in the National Football League, Jordan Love has not played good football. He just hasn't. And could Jordan Love go somewhere else? Like could the Houston Texans, for instance, call Green Bay? Here's a 6th-round pick. Can we get Jordan Love? Yeah. But the issue is you're probably not going to get anything more than a 6th-round pick. And it's not because Jordan's bad. It's because what Green Bay perceives Jordan's value to be is trumped by what the other teams in the quarterback market perceive Jordan Love's value to be, but B, and most importantly, what they perceive his value to be based on what they've seen in the NFL. Now, to Steezy's point over Twitter about getting more, if Aaron Rodgers' contract, if all this contract stuff was happening when Jordan Love got drafted, so like if Jordan Love was never drafted, and let's say, for example, we're going into this upcoming draft and then we draft a quarterback, right? And then Aaron Rodgers says, oh, he'll come back. Then you trade Jordan Love. Yeah, you can get a lot more for him because A, he's never played an NFL football game, and B, you draft him in the first round. So he's going to be worth more than a 6th round pick. He's been collecting dust on the sidelines. He hasn't played well in the games he's been in. And we don't know exactly how much he's developed because the entire majority of the efforts in Green Bay has been to make sure that Aaron Rodgers is happy so that he can come back. I think that Jordan Love is fine. I don't think that Jordan Love is a bad quarterback. I just think that I never thought Jordan Love would thrive in this situation. And so as much as it's unfortunate for Green Bay, the best they can get, the absolute best I think they could get for Jordan Love is a mid-5th round pick. And that's if they're lucky and if they're really good at negotiating. Outside of that, they're getting a late 6th, they're getting a 6th or 7th round pick and a guy who probably won't even make the roster anyway, which means that this pick and you paying Jordan Love was all for nothing. I wish Jordan Love nothing but the best, though. I think he's a good dude. He great personality. I saw that clip of with the whole Aaron Rodgers thing when he threw like a bomb and it was a touchdown and he like ripped off his jersey and said, Aaron, expletive Rodgers who. I'm not going to say the expletive because it's one of the worst ones in the book. But that's what he said. And I think he's great. And I think if you put him in, like, maybe he could thrive in a Houston where there's not a lot of expectations or something like that. But there's just too many expectations in Green Bay for him to follow Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if he would have been able to handle it. But unfortunately for him, now he probably won't have a job in Green Bay. I mean, either Green Bay pays him and then cuts him or he gets traded. But if he gets traded, I don't see him getting traded for anything more than a 6th round pick.
I will preface, before I let Steezy hop in here, I will say that I had the luxury, for lack of a better word, of seeing Jordan Love up close and personal at a couple practices in training camp. And I mean, not that he needed training camp to know this, because I told Dwayne this long ago. But yeah.
I think I told you this a long time ago.
Let's just say, yeah, that a 1st round pick was not exactly what should have been spent on dear Jordan Love. So, Steezy, what should the Packers do with their current backup?
I will say this. I feel like backup quarterbacks around the league are still, or quality backups around the league are still at a premium. And by no means am I saying that Jordan Love is a premium when talking about him and evaluating his, his skill set as a talent at the quarterback position. I'm just saying that because, because his trade value is at its nadir, why trade him now? You're only going to get a 5th or a 6th round pick, so the return on investment is going to be awful. And you need a backup quarterback anyway. He might not be the most reliable guy in the event of an Aaron Rodgers injury, knock on wood, but teams get desperate for quarterbacks. And eventually, and I hate to say this, I'm not trying to speak this into existence, but there is going to be an injury or 2 or 3, maybe 4. I don't know what the number's going to be, but yeah.
You're doing a little bit too much there, sir.
I'm just saying, though, it's the reality of the NFL. And so, come training camp or come preseason time, if there's an injury here or there and that team doesn't have a reliable, quarterback to back up whoever was just injured, they'll get desperate. And they'll remember that Jordan Love was compared to Patrick Mahomes. They'll remember that Green Bay reached for him in the 1st round. They'll remember that although his last year in college was awful, he had a couple of quality years before that. And so they'll look at the tantalizing potential and they'll still give up maybe a 3rd or a 4th. I mean, that's not a 5th or a 6th, and it's not substantially better, but again, the return on investment, it's been bad. And so while you'll never get a 1st round pick in exchange for a Jordan Love, you can still take advantage of the fact that teams are still going to be quarterback hungry. Eventually it will come. And so capitalize later when you can get a little bit more. For now, he still has a little bit of value. And if Aaron Rodgers decides to retire within the next year or 2, because who knows, he is that type of person, then you have a guy that you could potentially continue to groom. And so there's no reason to trade him now. His trade value is at an all-time low. Yeah, you can get a little bit more even if it's only substantially and marginally better, you can get more, and it could be as soon as later in the year. So better off doing that than
I didn't actually Steezy on Twitter. If Seattle called Green Bay today, and traded for Jordan Love, what's your reaction to that?
Before I say that, I do gotta go, so I'm gonna just answer that. Justin and Dwayne, thank you guys so much. Shout out to Neil too, behind the scenes, always doing his Dougie. If that happened, then we have way too many backup quarterbacks on the roster because we're talking about Drew Lock, we're talking about Jordan Love, we're talking about Geno Smith, who just re-signed, Jacob Eason, and that's far too many. I know there's a huge gaping hole at quarterback. I know it's better to bring in as many bodies as possible, but I just don't know if we'd be the right staff, at least with the guys that we have on the coaching staff right now. I don't know if we'd be the guys to oversee, his development. And so I probably wouldn't be super excited about that. But then again, the potential, it is very tantalizing. The athletic tools, the upside, it is still there. The arm, he just needs some seasoning, needs some grooming. And I wouldn't be opposed to it. But then again, it's like, I don't think we have the offensive coaching staff to be able to maximize his talents.
So as we think, thank you so much again, Steezy, and please plug yourself quickly before you leave.
Yes, sir. At this Justin, Go Talk podcast with Marcus, and last but not least, at Steezy A Smith, all social media platforms. Please drop some love, show some love. We're in the heat of the NFL offseason. We're going to be dropping lots of content, so stay tuned.
If you're correct, you have a show in 40 minutes, so please, gentlemen, go find Steezy A Smith right over here on YouTube. You have your live show coming up shortly. So as Steezy departs, I too will address this question. Y'all guys are correct in saying that Jordan Love's value is indeed injury. Yeah, he's not going to play. And the reality is, it's just not going to get any higher right now for Jordan Love. I told everyone who wanted to listen, when we drafted him, my issue was not drafting a quarterback. It was drafting that one. And I am displeased, for lack of a better term, with the organization for having to find out or having to put him in the organization to find out that Jordan Love was not the answer. I don't know if the 17 interceptions in his final season at Utah State was not evidence enough. So and I'm old enough to have seen the transition from Favre to Rodgers, and I can tell people, right, this chasing after Rodgers is all you need to know how the franchise feels about Jordan Love. That's all you need to know, because this is not the same. When Favre first retired, then came back and said he's not retired, the Green Bay Packers made absolutely no move to want Favre to remain in the building. They were actually praying that Favre still retired because they knew how good Rodgers was. They knew what they had in the building. That's the reason why they nabbed him at 24. They're like, best quarterback in the draft is sitting here. They did not want Favre to come out of retirement. And you can see, obviously, the same situation is not the case with Aaron Rodgers. No. You're going to have to trade him. And the reason why you should trade him,
for a bag of chips.
And this is no knock on the kid. I love Jordan Love, the person, not a fan of what he is as a quarterback. You have gone all in again, obviously, on trying to win a Super Bowl in terms of you've kept Rodgers and paid him a huge salary. You've tied Davante Adams with the expectation of getting a long-term contract in place. You just played Preston Smith. You paid Devondre Campbell. You brought in the Raiders head coach, or should I say associate head coach. You brought back Tom Clements. Now you're linked to Allen Robinson and Jarvis Landry in free agency. It is clear, again, you think you're going all in. And the reason you have to move...
That's such a letdown. The Jarvis Landry, Allen Robinson. Like, we do this every year. First it was Will Fuller and all that. I'll believe it when I see it.
Me too. I don't expect either to come because Green Bay is not a free agent destination, but who knows? Because Allen Robinson has been showing some Green Bay love.
Yes.
The reason why you have to trade Jordan Love is if you're going all in part, you need a competent backup just in case. And Jordan Love has shown you and showed the Packers brass. Because forget my feelings, forget your feelings, Dwayne, forget the feelings of anyone else out there on the outside looking in. The actions of the Packers brass have clearly shown what they think of Jordan Love. And they clearly think this guy is not the man. If they thought he was the immediate future, we would not be hearing rumors of a 4-year contract. That's going well past Jordan Love's tenure or rookie contract. And I mean, granted, they don't expect Aaron Rodgers to finish all 4 years, but it is clear the Packers think at no point in time for this contract do we want to turn over to Jordan Love. What can we get back for Jordan Love? Who knows? Because there's this one point that's missing. This upcoming quarterback class is extremely weak. None of the quarterbacks in this draft have a projected top 10 pick. We know some idiot is going to trade up to get one, probably Kenny Pickett. But as it stands right now, none of the quarterbacks carry a top 10 grade. And then when you look at the free agent market, obviously Aaron Rodgers is stood pat. Russell Wilson has already changed homes. Carson Wentz is gone. Kirk Cousins re-up for 1 more year. Matt Ryan has seemingly stood in place at Atlanta because he just restructured his contract. It's not much out there at all. So maybe we can trick somebody into Houston, someone into taking Jordan Love. Likely not the case, but the quarterback draft class and the free agency crop is very, very weak. Who knows? This may be the time to catch somebody sleeping and get a 4th-round pick out of them. But I think if you're going all in, you need a competent backup, and Jordan Love is not that dude. So let's play quarterback roulette to close out Dwayne. I just mentioned Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jameis Winston, Baker Mayfield. Quickly, Dwayne, where do each of these 4 quarterbacks play? Start with whoever you want to start with.
Baker needs to be playing football at home or in the Canadian Football League, honestly. But he'll still be in Cleveland. Unless maybe they go get Jimmy G. I don't know. No, he'll still be in Cleveland. Jimmy G should be in Washington, dude. It'd be so worth going to those games. But Jimmy G will probably end up in Indianapolis. Indy or Miami, I think, is where we'll see Jimmy G. If Deshaun Watson ends up in New Orleans, then Jameis Winston will probably end up in Houston.
Miami has already acquired Teddy Bridgewater, and I said that he's going to.
Yeah, they have acquired. Yeah, he's their backup. So I mean, I still wouldn't put it past them to maybe go get Jimmy G too. Just because I think Teddy Bridgewater still has trade value. Even if Miami decides to move on from him midseason and trade him, I think there's still a team that would like Washington or maybe Pittsburgh if they feel that Mitch isn't working out. But I love that for Mitch, so I don't think that'll be an issue. So yeah, I'll say Jimmy G ends up in Indianapolis. I think Jameis Winston will end up in Houston because I think Deshaun Watson ends up in Houston or in New Orleans, and so he'll be a part of that trade package. Matt Ryan staying put, and Baker Mayfield shouldn't be in the NFL, but he'll be in Cleveland. Yeah.
I think that's fair estimation. I'll start this by saying Atlanta.
Just blow it up already.
Oh my gosh!
Geez, blow it up already.
Seeing what
if Atlanta drafted Justin Fields last year like they should have.
I don't know how Atlanta continues. And this again, please let the viewers know. I like Matt Ryan. I am not here, casting aspirations on his player or character, like what Dwayne is putting up there. I'm just saying it is time to move on. And I think Atlanta last season, when Indianapolis was so desperate, missed the trick because I would have I would trade him to Indy and get a 1st-round pick. I mean, look at what LA gave up to get Matt Stafford. And you and I both believe Matt Stafford is very good, and he obviously proved it with his Super Bowl run. But if you look at the 2 careers, Matt Stafford has an NFL MVP.
Basically identical.
He has an NFL MVP, and he took the Atlanta Falcons to what should have been a Super Bowl victory. I have to believe.
It's so crazy. Like, Matt Stafford has the ring. Matt Ryan has the MVP. That's literally it. Like, they throw their career numbers and just yards, touchdowns, all that stuff. It's literally basically identical.
So I'm saying with Matt Ryan actually having an MVP, I must believe that he should be able to garner more than what Detroit got back from Matt Stafford. To see Atlanta continually doing nonsense and knowing that Cleveland is looking at quarterback, because I think that's where they should trade Matt Ryan to. Cleveland is looking for a quarterback. Pittsburgh is still looking for a quarterback. don't mind that they've been
I
after
think
Trubisky.
Pittsburgh's fine with Mitch. They'll be fine with Mitch. They'll be a playoff team with Mitch Trubisky
I
this
don't
season.
know, but we'll see.
This season, playoff team.
All of these, there are still teams who are quarterback hungry, and your option, your response to this was to restructure Matt Ryan to bring him back for yet another year, because probably you thought, oh, there's no Tom Brady in the NFC South, so man, probably it's up for grabs. Guess what? He's back. So to go through the quarterback roulette or carousel as it may, Atlanta just restructured Matt Ryan, so obviously he's probably staying. Here's it gets interesting. I see Jimmy G in Cleveland because they run something similar to what was going on in San Francisco, that run heavy offense, where all he has to do is run through a bunch of passes on naked bootlegs and play action fakes. I think Jimmy G works perfect in Cleveland, and Cleveland still has a great roster. Quarterback, not so much. So Jimmy G in Cleveland. Jameis Winston, if you're correct, and I could see it possibly happening where Deshaun Watson ends up there. Here's one thing I bet you didn't see. I think he ends up in Seattle, and he starts in Seattle because, quite frankly, what's Seattle going to do? Just say, oh, we're going to draft one of these bad quarterbacks in this class or stick with Geno Smith? No. So I think, if not New Orleans, I see Jameis Winston in Seattle. And to close out, Baker Mayfield is going to be on someone's bench. Baker Mayfield, quite frankly, currently cannot be someone's starting quarterback if they're seriously considering winning games. Just look at that Cleveland roster. There was so much talent up, down, and we all heard Odell Beckham Jr. is washed. And the very moment he stepped foot out of Cleveland in LA, look what he looked like. To the point, LA was en route to blowing out Cincinnati were it not for Odell Beckham Jr. get hurt. You know this, Dwayne. Had Odell Beckham Jr. not gotten hurt, Cincinnati was looking at a rope. So, guys, thank you all so much for coming on. Dwayne, I know you're on a bit of a hiatus, but it seems like you've been appearing on everyone else's show. So tell them which show you're going to be up on next.
That's what happens. That's what happens when Aaron Rodgers re-signs. I become a hot commodity. So I guess I got to thank Aaron Rodgers for that. Which one am I going to be on next? Jeremy's probably going to text me between now and Wednesday and ask me to come on the show. I will be on. So I was just on JT and the Don last week. That episode's out now. We talked about all this stuff. Check that out, JT and the Don on all DSPs. I'm going to be on The Final Whistle for the first time this Friday. I'm not sure when the episode will come out. But I'm going to be on that show. What else have I done? I've done so much, I can't even keep track. I was also on the East West Football Podcast with Kendall Whitley and some other guys whose names I can't remember right now. That episode's supposed to be coming out at some point this week as well. I think that's everybody. Yeah, I've been on this show. I've been on. Yeah, I was on stuff. But just look me up. I'm sure you'll find me in the last week or so. Yeah, that's really the best I can say. Break's almost over though. Kind of sucks. Like 2 or 3 weeks. I'll be back. So I tell Justin all the time he's the luckiest man in the business because he's got Neil pushing all the buttons for him. He just got to come out here and ask the questions. I got to push buttons and ask questions and all this other stuff. So, Go Talk with Marcus will be back officially as Go Talk with Marcus. The name is officially changed. No more Go Talk podcast. Go Talk with Marcus. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at GTP Marcus. You can subscribe on YouTube and also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow, leave a 5-star review, turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. We'll be back Friday, April 8th, 8 p.m. to talk about the play-in. Next day access on Apple Podcasts and Spotify the next day on Saturday at 12 in the afternoon. That's all I got. Justin's had a couple of my invitations for these past couple shows lost in the mail, but it's fine. It's fine.
I'll tell you, unlike Dwayne, I don't have the luxury of appearing on other people's shows. So that's why I had to create my own. Yeah. No one really wants me. But if you do want to find this show, type in hashtag this just in. Basically everywhere you'll find us. We're on Twitter, we are on Facebook, and we are on Instagram. Hashtag this just in. Please put the hashtag, or you will be taken to a lesser ESPN show hosted by Matt Skellerman. But I'm not here to cast aspirations on anyone's character or shows. You know to find us here at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Caribbean time, right here on YouTube, hashtag this just in. So for Go Talk with Marcus, Steezy A. Smith, I am the Justin of hashtag this just in, signing out. Thank you so much for watching.
I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with the king, no matter, you're just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes?